Hey everyone, this video will focus on detailed step-by-step tutorial on how to change your steering wheel in your Tesla Model Y or 3. It's very similar to the Refresh X and S. So we have here a carbon fiber steering wheel from Hanshow. This is real carbon fiber with the carbon fiber cover in gloss finish. Also has the perforated Napa leather. First, you want to remove the 4 torque screw. And these are T25s that you need to unscrew before you can swap out the internal component. So you do need to swap this over from the OEM. So there's some wirings and there's some clips that you need to do. And we'll show that later in the video. Again, this is the T25 torque screw. Once you got the 4 screw out, go ahead and wiggle the actual scroll wheel on each side, as well as the centerpiece. Now these are the plastic housing. You just want to wiggle it out and it will just slide smoothly. Don't try to force it. Wiggle it out, take your time, and be gentle with this. The last thing you want to do is bend any of the plastic housing or even rip some of the wires. It is pretty flimsy, and this again is the same exact core as the OEM Tesla. So when we remove the OEM component, it's exactly the same. So there's no bypassing any of the safety feature. These are all Tesla OEM parts, including the core itself. So it has all the safety feature, and you also have the heated feature. You can order it without the heated feature. So with this 2022 Model Y, we do have the lithium battery for the 12 volt, and how to disconnect this. You pull on the green tab up, pull out the black cover towards the driver's side, and lift straight up vertically. And that is it. That's how you disconnect the actual vehicle from power. You want to do that just in case of the airbag deploy on you, but it shouldn't, because airbag shouldn't deploy when you're parked. Next, taking 2 small flathead screwdriver about 3 to 6 inch in length, and poke each hole on each side and the bottom of the steering wheel, left side and right side, and that will pop out the actual airbag. So before you remove the actual airbag, make sure you unplug this yellow wire. So you just want to get 2 flathead screwdriver, or just 1, and then use your fingernails if it's long enough, and go ahead and collapse the actual lock and pull out, just like any other clips. To remove the steering wheel, you do need this 10mm bolt. So with the 10mm bolt, you want to have a long wrench, at least 2 to 3 feet wrench, for you to loosen the actual lug nut. And this is the hardest part, is loosening this lug nut for the very first time. It will require some force, one hand on the wrench and one hand on the steering wheel. After that, everything else is pretty much easy task with some tedious transfer of the components between the OEM steering wheel and the Hanshow carbon fiber steering wheel. So as you continue to loosen this 10mm nut, you can go ahead and use your fingers, your thumbs and your index finger, to completely loosen it, remove it, put it in a safe spot. You will need that to put that on the Hanshow steering wheel later to tighten it up. And we will be tightening that up to 62 pounds. This is how it looks like after we remove that bolt. You still do need to remove that wire on the left. It's a burgundy color, similar to that yellow wire. So again, using 2 pry tools or 1 pry tool and fingernails, you just press it in simultaneously and wiggle it out, and the wire will come loose. Don't try to pull on the wire itself, pull on the plastic clip. Then the steering wheel should come off smoothly. It requires a little wiggle for some vehicle, but otherwise this one is an easy pull off after the 10mm bolt came off. Next, you want to remove all the components from this OEM steering wheel. First, starting from the back, go ahead and flathead screwdriver the clip. There's 3 of them, and this is essentially the clip for your horn. So it has the spring on the other side, which is what gives you that reinforcement for when you're pressing on the horn, it comes back into its original position. So it's just a spring on each corner. And after you unclip both of those on each of those circular clip. It will pop right out on the other side, so there's 3 of them. And this will allow you to go ahead and unscrew those T25 Torque screw on each corner if you weren't able to get to it without removing this horn housing. So again, same process like you did with the customized handshell steering wheel. Once you remove those 4 screws, you will be able to wiggle out the 2 scroll wheel and the housing, as well as all the wirings and so forth. So we got the 4 screw out. Now we're going to wiggle this out, starting with the scroll wheel. So that's where I usually start, and then work my way around to the other scroll wheel, then to the bottom, and then back around. So again, be gentle with this. This plastic is very flimsy when not supported. So you just want to wiggle that out on each side. And once you got it to the edge, you can just slide it right off the steering wheel itself. So this is key to making sure your handshell steering wheel works. You have to transfer both the wire and the heated module on the bottom there, the blue one. So you're gonna have to unscrew 2 screws between the blue plug that you see there. So these are, I believe, T20, and just unscrew that. It might be T15 or T10, don't recall, but this one of the torque screw, unscrew both of them. This will allow you to remove this housing, which you will be transferring both this housing and the wires over to the handshell steering wheel. You won't be transferring the scroll wheel, so just make sure you don't unscrew any of those bolts on the scroll wheel. You'll be unclipping those 2 clips after this. So we're gonna have to pull out this wire here, and that's it. Here's your module. So that will make it easier for you to install. You're gonna install that module onto the handshell steering wheel and then transfer these wires over. So go ahead, unclip the 2 scroll wheel. You're not gonna be transferring the scroll wheel over. The handshell used the OEM scroll wheel, and it does include with the order. All right, so now, once we unplug everything, I just unplugged that heated clip there, the wiring clip that heat your actual OEM steering wheel. So that will be transferred over. So now you see here, everything is now going to be transferred over to the handshell steering wheel. We want to keep the screw just in case you want to swap back later on or you need extra screw. Go ahead and place the OEM scroll wheel cover and housing back, and then put those 4 T25 screws back on. I just hand tighten it, and then we're just gonna store this away for future use. Or you can sell this and recover some of the charges that you pay for the carbon fiber steering wheel. You can get almost as much as how much you pay for the carbon fiber. These OEM steering wheel are pretty pricey to purchase from Tesla, but you can get maybe $400, $500, $600 off this, even without the core wiring and the heating feature module. So just try to sell it if you don't need it or you think you don't need it. But if you want to keep it just in case you want to convert to OEM, you can as well. So now we will be transferring to the handshell steering wheel. So in reverse order, we will take out, or we took out this cover already, and we'll start with plugging in the 2 scroll wheel. But before we do that, we want to put this heating cover module, for the module that is, back on first, and using the same screw that you took out earlier, you will go ahead and place that cover back on, and using that torque screw and tighten up. The thing with this handshell cover is a slight difference between the 2022. I think this was designed for 2021 and previously, but it still fits. You don't want to over torque the screw for this heated feature module cover. So you want to make sure you just tighten it enough that you feel a little tension and then stop, or else you can overstrip the plastic. So once I have the heated feature module on here, I will go ahead and start transferring over the wiring. So I'm going to plug in this module, Then unplug in the 2-scroll wheel. And that is it, really. So there's a little wiring modulation that you have to move around to make sure it fits, and clean and clear out of those screw bits. So you just want to go ahead and plug the heated feature adapter first. That goes in first. Once you have that, push it into the slot where that module that you just screw onto. Make sure it sits flush. And there are 2 slots where you can place the wire in between that will hold that wire in place for the heating module and that blue module wire. So once you have that done, go ahead and place the actual scroll wheel and the housing as well as the wires onto your hand show steering wheel. So you want to slightly place it on the groove, but not fully press it in yet. The reason for this is because you want to ensure all the wirings are out of the way of where the screws will be, as well as your 10mm bolt. So take your time with this, play around with the wires, just make sure that it sits flush along the edges outside of where your screw will be. And also make sure it doesn't sit next to the airbag and the horn spring. You don't want that to get in the way, or else your horn won't work. So how I did this was I started to wiggle the actual casing over the handheld steering wheel, and I placed the wires near the edges along the actual airbag housing where the springs are at, and that seems to be a good spot. And once I feel comfortable, I'm going to press in both the scroll wheel cover and also where the bottom module cover is at, and the whole housing should be sitting flush with the actual steering wheel at this point. And if you feel comfortable with the wirings, you can go ahead and move on to the next step by putting the 4-screw torque screw back on. But I still feel that the wires are still in the way, so I'm reaching back in to move the wires around. And these are wires for your scroll wheel as well as for your heated feature, if you have that heated feature function for your Tesla. Then again, just make sure the case, the cover is all flush and it sits flush with your OEM casing and the hand shell. So everything has to fit perfectly before you actually clip on the airbag housing. So make sure it lines up. Don't press in the airbag until you put in the 4-screw. So that's key. Once you put in the airbag casing or the airbag horn housing, you won't be able to screw at least a couple of these. So make sure you screw all 4 of these T25 torque screw onto the actual wheel itself. So this 4-screw will hold the whole housing in place, the skeleton of this steering wheel. So there's 2 on the top and there's 2 in the bottom. So just make sure you tighten it. Don't over torque it. As long as you feel some tension, you can stop. And after you've done that, check the wires again. And if you feel comfortable, go ahead and line up the horn and the airbag housing and snap those 3 clips into place. And to check your work, just make sure the spring works on all 3 of them. That will ensure your horn will work properly. That is it. Now go ahead and go back to your Tesla vehicle. Slide the steering wheel onto the actual bolt itself. And you can't mess this up, but do be careful. Just line it up. There is a groove, or at least a marker on top where you will line up the teeth with the actual vehicle and the steering wheel. And just wiggle it on. And then now you can just plug in that burgundy wire. Put in the 10mm bolt. Hand tighten it. Then get the torque wrench, adjust it to 62 pounds. You can do between 60 and 62 pounds. Go ahead and tighten that until you torque it to specification. And that is it. So once you have it to specification, place the airbag back. Remember to plug in that yellow wire. The horn won't go off until you plug in the 12-volt battery. And that is it. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe. Catch you all next time. If you're interested in the hand control steering wheel, check out the link in the description of this video.